Hello and welcome to another episode of the work.knits podcast. My name is Lauren, I'm coming to you from England in the United Kingdom, and we must be into the 20s when it comes to episodes now. We've been going since February of this year, and I try to hop on here every 2 weeks, once every fortnight, at least. Sometimes there's more, sometimes it's weekly. We just see how we can go. But if you are joining me as a new viewer, thank you so much for checking out this channel. It'd be lovely to hang out with you on here for a little bit. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much. I've been really enjoying engaging with you all down in the comments, over on Instagram, and really loving to get to know some of you better through test knits over the last few weeks. And it has been, it's been a weird couple of 2 weeks. I've not been feeling that well. For those who are returning viewers, you can probably hear it in my voice. I'm sorry if I keep clearing my throat today. But yeah, not been feeling that well, been very tired, and have been travelling around a lot, which is a real privilege to be able to do it, but it's also just been a bit hectic. So my knitting has been my stabilising factor, and I'm very grateful for that. So I thought right at the beginning of today's episode I would make hopefully a much awaited, thank you for your patience, announcement, which is that my From Farm to City shawl is finally going to be published today. It will be live by 7 PM today UK time. And for those who haven't seen the shawl pattern before, this is a design I've been working on over the summer. The idea is that this is something that you could wear for a walk across some fields and in the countryside, but equally it could look really great with a really chic outfit for the city. It's meant to be really versatile, and hence the name From Farm to City shawl. In terms of knitting it, it's also been designed with kind of hopefully pleasurable, enjoyable knitting in mind. You start off with this really detailed cable section which you knit as a long strip. You then pick up stitches on either side of that and knit the wings, so you've got that kind of really interesting bit when you've got all the mojo at the beginning of the project, and then the latter half or latter 2/3 of the project is just nice potato chippy stockinette. The sides are knit flat, and then you finish the whole thing with an I-cord. The other hopeful benefit of this project is I made this shawl plus another project which I'll show you in a minute, all from 2 skeins of DK weight yarn plus a 25g mini. So those will make you 2 items. I really tried to make it so the shawl only used 1 skein of this main colour. I think to get a really good wingspan that you can kind of wrap around your neck, that's quite hard. But my hope is that kind of this is very yarn efficient, is I guess what I'm trying to say. In terms of the yarn I've used, not sponsored or bought myself, the cable is knit up in John Arbon Textiles Appledore in the colourway Pig Snout. This is a 25g mini, and I want to say I used about 10 grams for that central cable. So the idea is you could use a scrap, or you could hold 2 fingering weight yarns together, or a fingering and mohair. And then you pick up down the sides and knit these side panels in your main colour. Mine is John Arbon Textiles Pure Elements DK, which was a limited edition in 2022. They still had some skeins of it a couple of months ago, and this is in the colour Valley Mist. They achieve these colours through kind of blending different British breeds. And then the whole thing's finished off with an I-cord, which just kind of nicely finishes it off. And yeah, the idea is you can wear this like a neckerchief. I've been wearing it a little bit like kind of round the back of my shoulders, like this, which with a coat or just like a cardigan, that can be quite chic, bit of detail going down the back, and it's kind of not so long. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it's not like so long that it's getting in the way. It's just kind of nice and keeping the back of my neck warm. I'm going to make my hair super frizzy by now pulling this off. So yes, that was a little announcement to make up at the very top of the episode, is that this is going to be launched. I just need to take some additional photos of me actually wearing it today. One of the challenges with designing winter or autumn knitwear during the summer is that it's just too hot to wear them for photos. But yes, today is nice windy autumnal weather, so I'll get some photos and make the final tweaks to the pattern and get that up on Ravelry. So thank you so much for those of you who've already favorited it and been patient with my Ravelry ineptitude. I'm still getting used to the platform from a designer perspective, and kind of putting your pattern in draft mode on there was something that evidently proved quite challenging for me. So it ended up getting almost like published but without the pattern attached. So thank you for your patience. It will be attached as of today. So that's the From Farm to City shawl, and very, very pleased with that. The other pattern that I know a few of you have been waiting on that I thought I'd make a brief announcement about is my cabled collar pattern. This is my second version of it, where I tweaked the neckline. Where my original version's gone, I don't know. For those of you who've just joined the podcast in the last few weeks or last month or so, you may not be aware, but we are midway through a move. We are selling our previous house and trying to buy a new house, and are staying with family in the interim, and it means that our stuff is spread about 3 or 4 different houses, storing it with various family members. So I have no idea where my original version went, which is a shame because I wanted both for photos. But this has now been test knit. I still don't really have a name for it, so I might keep it pretty simple and say cabled collar. This will be published probably one of the first or second weekends of October. I will probably try and align it with my next podcast episode, so it will not be next weekend but the weekend after. Very, very excited for this. It's going to be perfect in the autumn. Just, oh, and all the autumnal colours. I'm loving it. So those are a couple of announcements just at the top end of this episode. Oh, I better tell you what I'm wearing. That might be helpful. Get my hair out the way. So this is a heavily modified Strange Brew sweater. I knit the first part of this, the yoke, probably like over a year ago, but as long-term viewers of the podcast will know, I only really kind of finished it off this year. So I used the Strange Brew sweater recipe for the round yoke increases, but I designed the motifs myself. And I did a folded neckband that I went back in to do afterwards. I've done quite tailored sleeves. And then the body, I've done a curved hem front and back, which doesn't go perfectly with these trousers, but looks really good with high-waisted jeans. So yeah, but love this, wear it a lot. I kind of wanted almost like a long sleeve t-shirt vibe, and I think I got that, so I'm very happy. The yarn I've used, the dark blue is Holst yarn. I always get this wrong. Is it called dark navy or like mild navy? I'll put it in the description box below. Yeah, Holst yarn, super soft, jump weight yarn. And then the gold and yellow colour is Schwendenrot yarns in the colourway Ripened Corn. And it's like a kind of I think it's got some silk in it. It's beautiful. And I gave the remainder of this skein to a lovely podcast viewer. So that's been quite nice. There's 2 of us who will share this exact skein in our projects. So I love that. Right. Into main core podcast content. A bit of a weird one this week because I don't have any of my finished objects with me. So I'm going to insert a picture and try and keep it up whilst I'm talking. So in the last 2 weeks, and some of you will have seen some of these bits cast on in the last episode, but I mentioned that I was doing a load of baby knits for a colleague at work who is having a baby, and I have since gifted those baby knits. So you'll see in the photo, at the top of the photo, and I should just say this layout's maybe not the most professional photo layout, but it does the job. And you don't get very much of a sense of scale, which is the other slight challenge, but at the very top is a classic ribbed hat by Purl Soho. I knit the smallest size, and the bottom half of that is a John Arbon Knit by Numbers. Let's have a look. Knit by Numbers mini, colourway 36, and that was a 25 gram DK weight. And then the top of the hat is 2 strands of Kinross 4-ply superfine lamb's wool in the colourway Quartz, held together. So that was really using up a mini that was in a colour that I just couldn't match with anything else in my stash. And then it also used up some leftovers of the Kinross, which I really, really loved, and I thought would be perfect for a baby item because it's so soft but has not got too many little fluffy bits coming off. So I think I knit that pattern pretty much to pattern. I think the only thing I might have changed, I think I used a 3.75mm needle rather than a 3.25 as requested in the pattern. And that's just because I'm an English style knitter and I tend to knit a bit tighter than continental style knitters, and I found before that I struggled to achieve gauge on Purl Soho patterns, so that's why I did that. Then the sweater, you can see, is based off the Flax light sweater by Tin Can Knits. I knit this also on 3.75mm needles. I did a folded neckband, which I went back in and picked up later. I put a piece of beading elastic in it to try and keep it stretchy even after it's been pulled over baby's head several times. What modifications did I make to this? I continue to work, the Flax light sweater is a free pattern from Tin Can Knits. So I think I'm okay to disclose some of this. So after you work a certain number of raglan increases, they ask you just to work plain stockinette rounds for several rounds before you split for the sleeves. I continue to work raglan increases on both sides of the raglan stitch for all of those extra rounds. I just really wanted to make sure that baby had enough room around its arms to kind of move freely and that it could fit over a baby grow. So I kept working those. I also used a DK weight yarn, not a fingering weight yarn. I'll come on to what I used in a moment. And so I kept working raglan increases, and then the other modification I made was that down the sides of the sweater, and I don't know how well you'll be able to see it in the photo, but I actually put in a little 4-stitch twist cable down both sides with one purled stitch either side. I just thought it was a nice little extra detail. I think that's about it really. Oh, I went down to 3mm needles for all the ribbing. That would be the other thing. And in terms of the yarn I used King Cole Big Value, I don't know if you'll be able to see that, Big Value DK in the colourway Taupe, let's go with Taupe, 4023. And the reason I chose, I actually haven't worked with 100% acrylic yarn in a very long time. But this, one of my key things with these baby knits is to consider how they're going to be used. And whilst this individual, like my colleague, does have knitters in the family, they're very, very busy and I can't really foresee them hand washing baby knits, if I'm going to be honest. So part of the point of giving them a acrylic jumper is that they are going to be able to wash that very, very easily in the washing machine. And this particular yarn looks so like wool. It's just incredible. The way it's dyed makes it look very, very natural. So I was very, very happy with that. And then finally, the cutest thing I knit was those little baby Starlet Mittens. Those, I think that is the pattern name. I cannot remember the designer, but if you type in baby Starlet Mittens into Ravelry, they will come up. They are thumbless. They don't have a thumb, so they're just a little pouch that you can put over baby's hands. And I knit those up in, the white is Isager Highland wool in their just natural white base, and the orangey colour is some leftover Filcolana Saga, again can't remember the colourway, I think it's like sugared almond or something is the name of it when you look at it on websites, and I held both of those double to get gauge, and those were knit on 3mm needles for the ribbing and 3.5 for the main mitten. The only thing that I didn't quite follow properly in the instructions was I did K2 tog, knit 2 together for all the decreases rather than doing slip slip knit on one side. I know some people feel really strongly about this. To be honest, in mittens this is probably the one time I should have done it because it affects what colour the top stitch comes out as, but I didn't, and I don't think the recipient is going to notice. So those are my finished objects for the week. I was hoping for there to be a few more. That is what I've got. My kitten has come and joined us for recording the podcast episode, so sorry if you hear some background noise. Little bee. I'm also looking at my camera battery, and whilst it is plugged in and on charge, I'm just a bit concerned, but we'll keep going until it cuts out. Hi Beatrice, what are you up to? Okay, so to move from finished objects to works in progress. Beatrice, you're interrupting the podcast. Excuse me. Okay, so works in progress. I have actually moved things on quite a bit on several projects, including quite a languishing whip. Yeah, let's just dive in. So last episode I showed you my George's sweater by Kolibri by Johanna. This is a gorgeous raglan sweater with a back that ties in a deep V, and I think last time I showed you I just split for the sleeves. I have now knit the body, and I am just knitting the I-cord on, which is why you can see a needle hanging, yeah. Okay, so I am knitting this up in 2 strands of knitting for olive. So I'm holding it in the knitting for olive merino in bottle green, and I'm holding the knitting for olive mohair in slate green. Now, the reason for knitting these jumpers is they are going to be jumpers for my bridesmaids. I have 2 bridesmaids. We are getting married in November, and they have got dark foresty green dresses, and I've been searching for the right green to make sweaters for them. Now, I am still a little bit nervous that these are not the right colour, but I have just got to a point now where I'm like, it will be what it will be. But I'm really enjoying the process. I love the yarn. But I do have some thoughts on this pattern, and this is by no means a criticism of Johanna. Well, don't actually know her pronouns. They really push boundaries, I feel, with the designs they make. They create things that look incredibly commercial. I mean that in a good way, you know, things that people spend years studying how to make at kind of design colleges to become kind of commercial fashion designers. She's really bringing that sense of style, those kind of innovative shapes, to the hand knit world, and I think that's fantastic. But in doing so, I can imagine these patterns are quite hard to, well, design. And I don't know if it's just my reading of this pattern, but as I said, the pattern at the back, the front is a kind of plain raglan, the back is meant to be a deep V that ties. Now, I have chosen not to do the big bow at the back of the jumper because that's a little bit maximalist for me, and I don't think it's a kind of style my bridesmaids would go for. But instead I've kind of made these little ties. So I will admit, you know, I've done some pattern modification here. However, the part of the back that I'm less happy with, and I don't know how well you can see this on camera, but it's just a really bizarre shape. It's not a straight V back. I won't give away the rate of decreases in this top section because it is a paid for pattern, but suffice it to say, I think I should have continued that. But when you get to this point, the pattern changes how you increase, sorry if I just said decrease, increase, how you increase, and I did what it said, and it just looked horrendous, and I thought even with an I-cord edging, I don't think that's gonna look okay. So then I kind of did my own version that was maybe slightly gentler, and then I followed the pattern that you then don't increase for a bit, but I just think it looks really bumpy. So I don't know whether with blocking I'm going to be able to kind of straighten this out under a bit of tension. We will see, but it's just not quite what I wanted. These little tails have turned out how I wanted. In the pattern, you add these on afterwards. I've just knit these on as I go. But anyway, we will see if this kind of blocks out straight, but at the moment I'm not very happy with the shape of the back line. On camera it's looking really nice and straight, in person it really, really isn't. So we will see. So this might end up being ripped back a lot, which will be horrendous because it's got mohair in it, but I want to give it the benefit of the doubt that it will block out with the I-cord. So anyway, huge amounts of progress on this. It's just not been, it flew off my needles to begin with. It's slowed down a bit just simply because I've not quite had the confidence that it's going to turn out the way I want it to. I will finish applying the I-cord to the body and then knit the sleeves this next week, I believe. But yeah, and I'm knitting this on, I think the main body I knit on 5mm, the I-cord edging I'm doing on 3.5. The only other thing I'd say is I really struggled to get, I struggled to get gauge, and so I've ended up doing a bit of maths to actually knit this not at the gauge the pattern's asked for. So yeah, did a bit of tweaking there. So that's whip number 1, the George's sweater. Whip number 2, actually no, I'll come back to that in a minute. This is going to be whip number 2. Is one that I haven't actually made progress on in a while, and now I've done a bit more on. Maybe I can knit even more this evening, let's see. It's inside out, which doesn't help. And the colours for this really, really don't show up properly on camera. The camera really doesn't do them justice. but this is my, even that doesn't properly do it justice, it looks a lot brighter and a bit more 70s on camera than it does in real life. This is my Recollect Cowl by Knit.Love.Wool, aka Jennifer Steingass. And this is a colourwork and alternating stockinette and garter stitch cowl. You knit it as a tube and then I will seam both ends together. Obviously I am nowhere near the point of seaming. I need to probably knit about double this length, if not more, to bring it out to about here. And yeah, I'm knitting this in so many different yarns. So the white that you can see very clearly, that is Retrosaria Rosa Pomar Apresenta Kids Syria Alpaca, I think, just in the white base. There's also the pinky colour here, which isn't really showing up properly on camera. It's way more pink than that. This is Rosa Pomar Pegulhal in colour number 2. You've then got this kind of greeny, yellowy, mustardy colour. This is knitting for Oliver Merino in the colourway Dark Ochre. Then there is a burnt orange colour, that is a River Knit BFL Mini. And then the red colour you can see is a Lichen and Lace Mini in the colourway Beetroot. So all sorts going on, and it's involving carrying around a lot of yarn, which I think is the other reason I am not making as much progress on it as I would want to. It's definitely a product knit, not a process knit. Let's just put it that way. So that's that width, but I have made some progress. Yeah, actually, sorry, just to explain the progress. So I think last time I spoke to you, I was down here, so I've put on this much. And this is knit on 3.5mm needles. And then the next whip number 3, is actually using the yarn, the kind of almost like leftover yarn from the From Farm to City shawl, but in a new accompanying design, which will come later on in the autumn, which is going to be a From Farm to City beanie. So using exactly the same colours, Appledore DK and Pig Snout, and that cable design, and then the Pure Elements DK yarn, limited edition, and you knit the cable, pick up, and you knit in rib, and then there'll be decreases, and then you'll pick up on the other side and do a folded brim. And this is being knit on 3.75mm needles. So really great to have that casted on and started, because that's been in my mind for a while. So sneaky peek. And I think that pretty much represents all my knitting for the last 2 weeks, which kind of doesn't feel like very much, and yet, yeah, I feel like I've knitted a lot. It's a really strange one. I think that Georgia sweater has taken up a lot of time, and then the baby knits, and it's also been a busy couple of weeks. So that's all the kind of knitting content I have to share, and I know it feels like a very whistle-stop tour. I'm really hoping that by the next episode I would have cast on a few more things that I have in mind. There's some bits that I've wanted to be casting on now for like a month or so, and I've wanted to get one of the bridesmaid sweaters done, so I've not got 2 hanging over me. I wanted to get those baby knits done, so hopefully now in this next week or so I can get that bridesmaid's jumper done and off the needles, and then I can start casting on some of these other bits. I've got a very cool idea for a sweater that has been on my mind for a really long time. I just need to set aside time to do it. I also need to swatch for a new design that I might be submitting to a magazine. I'm not going to say anything more than that, but I'm going to play around with that, and that's kind of a new design process for me. Yeah, just yeah, lots of ideas. So I'm hoping the next episode is going to be full of lots of exciting new things for you all to see, because I do feel like I've had several projects kind of on the go for so long, you must be so bored of them. But this is kind of what I do. Unless I absolutely love a project, like I did with the Shift Cowl, they just take me a while, and I plug away with loads on the go, and then all of a sudden I'll get the mojo to finish one. Which probably doesn't make the best podcasting content, but I do have one more thing to share with you guys if you are up for still hanging around. I was going to share an acquisition, but this is not my normal kind of acquisition. If you are someone that does not like acquisitions because lots of yarn, like, you know, you don't set aside big budgets for yarns, this one might still be of interest to you. So bear with me, and if this doesn't interest you, then for the next time you can disregard what I'm saying, but give me a chance on this one, because as I mentioned, that baby sweater was made out of a pure acrylic yarn, but it just looked so like wool. And I was so impressed. It was so nice to knit with, it made a beautiful finished garment, and it was a lovely colour. And so I went back into the shop that I bought the yarn from, and I had a further bit of look at their stock. Now, I know some people in the knitting community have quite strong feelings about acrylic, and then for other people that is all they knit with, and I really want everyone to knit with whatever they enjoy knitting. But one thing I think is really important to highlight is that whether you knit with pure wool, or whether you knit with a combination of wool and plastic, or whether you knit with pure plastic, aka acrylic wool, all of us are still doing something good for the environment, because we are making a garment in a slow, authentic method, without the use of loads of machinery, without the use of factories, and we know who's made it, so we're also being kind to humanity in that sense. And a handmade garment is going to last for years, whereas factory produced garments do not always. So I don't want any comments down below about the environmental impact, because actually it's all about balance, and as long as we're all doing something and we're making a concerted effort, I really think that's the main thing. So with all of that in mind, I took another look at this yarn, which, as I said, looks like wool, and I looked at the price point, and I bought 500 grams of this yarn, which is DK weight. I have never bought 500 grams of any yarn, minus the yarn that I have bought for the bridesmaid sweaters, and that was a real and that's because it's for my wedding. I've never bought 500 grams of yarn before, because it's not been affordable. This is the yarn in ball form, and it looks like wool. I bought 500 grams worth of yarn for £13, I think 50. That's an adult woman's sweater of pretty much any size, I think, and that could even make men's sweaters. That is a huge quantity of yarn, like, you know, for £13, I mean. And this really opened my eyes a bit, because I do think, you know, there's so many beautiful yarns out there. I really want to support yarn dyers. I really like using pure wool because I like the way it feels on my skin. But if I have an opportunity to use something that is more cost effective and it produces something equally beautiful, why wouldn't I? And also, why wouldn't I share that with you all? So for those who are not based in the UK, I should do a quick conversion. £13 is the equivalent of like $15. And you'd struggle to get a women's jumper from a shop for $15. So the fact you can knit one when normally hand knit stuff is more expensive than the shops, I think this is amazing. So I thought I'd share this with you, and I am planning a very exciting sweater with it. I didn't used to use DK weight yarn because I didn't feel like I got as much yarn for my money, so I've always knit in fingering weight really until relatively recently. So I'm very excited to be doing a DK weight project and to share with you a very different type of yarn to what I've been using recently on the podcast. So there we go. That's my little acquisition section, which I'm very excited about. Right, I think I'm going to leave you guys there. Life update wise, I don't want to bore you, there's not really that much to give. I'm plugging away with work, settling into the new job, lots of travel. People have been very, very patient with me running these test knits basically on my commutes. And yeah, we are still trying to sort out housing situation. The UK housing market has completely crashed and is just in a terrible state. So not the ideal time to be trying to sell a property, but hey. And we are getting everything in line ready for the wedding in less than 2 months, which is so exciting. So yeah, that's us. Do let me know how you're doing down in the comments. We are still running our 1,000 subscriber giveaway. We are really, really close, guys. We're 100 people off 1,000 subscribers. Please, 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 I don't normally do this, but please, please subscribe if you've been watching me for a while and you haven't yet clicked that subscribe button, but you know that you're going to come back for the next episode. Please support me by clicking that button. It would mean so much and just helps me reach a wider audience. And yeah, I think that's it really. Do let me know how you're doing down in the comments. As I said, let me know what you're knitting on. I really love hearing from you. There's some of you who regularly tell me what you're knitting on, and those comments literally brighten up my morning drinking my coffee on the train. So please keep telling me what you're up to and how you're doing. And with that, I'll say bye for now and happy knitting.